and welcome to Weather on the Go. This is your special severe weather coverage here, as I will be covering all the severe weather here as we head into our Friday tomorrow and Saturday here this weekend and into Sunday here on the weekend as well as looking at kind of the heavy rain impacts of here with the storm system on the warm side as well, and kind of looking at the total rainfall all the way through the rest of the month of April. Now, welcome to my special severe weather coverage here today, and this is here the late afternoon edition. I'm just uploading it here just now. Do remember to subscribe to my channel to get all the weather related content here, and crush that like button here to like my video. And if you have any comments or questions here, do be sure to ask, and do not hesitate to ask, as I will be here all day to answer these and all night to answer these here ahead of the storm system. So let's look at the bigger picture here. You got a trough moving into the southwestern part of the United States toward California, bringing all the soaking rains for northern and down into central California and portions of northwestern and western Nevada. But as we head through here Friday morning toward the midday portion of the day here on Friday, a very large trough starts to dig in here to the desert southwest here and towards Arizona, up through portions of Utah and Nevada, and starts to really amplify. A lot of southwesterly flow aloft ahead of this in the middle of the country, with warming temperatures and moistened air mass here, with dew points rising well into the 60s. And then behind that here, underneath that trough, you're going to have that cooler weather and those northwesterly flow type of air behind that. But as we head here into Friday night, that trough starts to take on a little bit of a negative tilt, and just to the east of that, where you have all that warm, moist, humid air, you're going to have some thunderstorm activity here that'll be developing just east of that trough, where you have the strengthening low-level and mid-level jet, and you have all that here convergence coming together with the dry line developing, the surface low starting to develop on the lee side of the Rockies, and you'll start to see that here develop as we head here into early Saturday morning. This will move up into portions of the central and northern Great Plains states, still with somewhat of a negative tilt here, but a developing low pressure system across these areas, and this will continue to really amplify and develop into a very large low pressure system here as we head into Saturday evening, with the trailing cold front overtaking that dry line across portions here of the troughing areas. And then here ahead of that, still a lot of warm, unstable air here, untapped air, with all that ridging here across the eastern half of the country. And then as this pushes up to the north here, we're going to see this really tightly wound low pressure system as you get toward the South Dakota, North Dakota, and even western Minnesota borders there. And that here on the back side will be producing some very heavy snow, but on the warm side here, a lot of severe weather potential, with still that cold front pushing through here as we head into Sunday. So now that was here kind of looking at the bigger picture of things. Kind of let's look at the temperature and the dew point type of things here, kind of leading up to this type of severe weather event late this week into the weekend. We got temperatures tonight, very mild, very muggy across the central and southern plains, even getting up here into the Missouri Valley around the Ozarks. We got temperatures here down toward Wichita in the middle and upper 60s for lows tonight. You get down toward the Dallas-Fort Worth area, temperatures will be hovering around 70 for lows, and even down into South Texas, I mean mid-70s for lows down here towards the Corpus Christi area, getting up toward Houston, and getting down here towards the Mexican border. And then still, as you head up into the northern plains, we got low temperatures around Omaha in the middle 50s, Chicago in the mid 40s, with that warm front starting to advance to the north here in the upper Midwest as we head through time. And you can clearly see as we head into tomorrow, this is Friday's highs. We got widespread 80s and 90s across the central and southern plains, much of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and even up into portions of Nebraska, eastern Colorado here on the front range is really going to be baking in 80s and 90s. Even some upper 90 potential here, some upward temperatures in the upper 90s as we head into portions of central Nebraska, getting down into western Kansas. Clearly see where that warm front is. You could see here on the lakefront in Chicago could have temperatures in the lower 50s, and then you go a few hundred miles south into east central or central Illinois, and temperatures will be surging into the middle and upper 70s, and even some 80s down here into the Ozarks here as we head into tomorrow. And then as we head into Saturday, same thing. As it starts to amplify even further, we got temperatures in Chicago in the low to mid 80s, a lot of 80s across here portions of the eastern 2/3 of the country, exception here being the north and east. And then we got even some more 90 potential here across portions of Texas down into portions of Louisiana as well. You clearly see where that cold front lies across portions of the western Great Plains, and that will start to surge to the east very slowly as we head toward late this weekend. Now, also ahead of that, combining with those really mild temperatures, will be here the dew points rising the low to mid 60s across here the Ozarks and southward into the mid-south regions and portions of the central and southern plains. Dew points just hugging up to that warm front, and southward of that warm front is going to be into the low to mid 60s, maybe some isolated 70-degree readings for the dew points here as we head into our night tonight. And as we head into Friday afternoon, late afternoon, that surging northward warm front will reach into the upper Midwest and mid-Mississippi Valley region. And like I said, northern parts of Illinois, southern Wisconsin, over towards south-central portions of Minnesota, getting back over into portions here of Michigan. The dew points will be in the 40s, maybe even some 30s mixed in. And then here you go south of that warm front, and you immediately get into upper 50s, low to mid-60 dew points here as you get into southern Iowa, central Illinois, back into the Ozarks, and down in the central and southern plains and into the mid-south here in the warm sector of the storm. And then as we head into Saturday afternoon, that warm front continues to surge to the north all the way up to almost the Canadian border, up toward Lake Superior, the UP of Michigan. We could have dew points up near Minneapolis, St. Paul around 60 degrees. Some mixing out of the dew points are possible Saturday afternoon, kind of due to some tropospheric drying in the atmosphere here across portions of the southeastern part of the country with that high pressure system, but still enough dew point temperatures and enough boundary layer moisture to support some heavy rainfall and some severe weather as we head into Saturday and even Sunday here, as well as this cold front continues to surge to the east. Along and ahead of that cold front here, you can see moisture levels pooling into the 60s and even near 70 down here into portions, at least in the Little Rock region, maybe even into the Ozarks and the foothills of the Missouri and southern Illinois here as well. And then you got to look here at the shear output here as mid levels of the atmosphere at the mid latitudes. You can see it has that trough, pushes into Southern California, starts broad, but then he really starts to get its act together as we head into tomorrow afternoon on Friday, as it starts to take on a negative tilt. And then you can really see rounding the base of that trough, you can see all this here strong mid-level winds, and this will be here kind of a mid-level speed maximum across portions here of the central and southern plains, even nosing its way up here into the upper Midwest and upper Mississippi Valley region as well, into western Iowa, eastern Nebraska, down through central Kansas, and even his way up here into southeastern portions of South Dakota, and that is included in the severe risk as we head into Friday. And then it'll broaden some as we head into Sunday afternoon and Saturday as well, and this will really start to slow down here kind of the advancement of that cold front from west to east and have a training effect on storms, meaning storms will be moving over the same locations as we head into Sunday afternoon across much of the Ozarks, getting down to the southern plains, and maybe up into the mid-Mississippi Valley region as well. Now let's look at the severe weather here part of it. This is tomorrow's day 2 categorical outlook. This was updated here at midday around 12:30 here from the Storm Prediction Center. They did trim the northern end of this here enhanced risk and shifted it a little farther to the south. However, still a large area across much of South Dakota, even southern North Dakota, getting into southwestern Minnesota, northwest and western Iowa, much of the state of Nebraska, getting down into Kansas, and even all the way down here into portions of the panhandle of Texas and far eastern New Mexico. There is a slight risk, and then a marginal risk here up toward the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, La Crosse, getting over toward Green Bay, all the way up here toward Duluth here, Wisconsin, Duluth, Minnesota area, and then getting down here into Des Moines, Iowa, and the Quad Cities, and getting back down toward Kansas City as well. And then, like I said, that enhanced risk here is from south central portions of Nebraska, southward into west central portions there of Kansas, getting into the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas as well, including near the Lubbock area, getting up towards Salina, Kansas, and just west there of Lincoln, Nebraska here, kind of under that highest threat of 3 of 5 on the 5 scale of severe weather. Now, looking this at a broader region here, you can see that risk zone still there, but let's look at here the probabilities. You can see tornadoes of 2% to 5% risk of tornadoes all the way from the northern plains down through here the front range of the Rockies into the western Great Plains, getting down here into the Texas Panhandle and all the way down toward the Mexican border. And then here, kind of going along with that, you do have that wind risk here in those same areas with that here 5% risk of wind here in the marginal risk areas. You got a 15% wind risk here here into the slight risk areas, and then 30% wind risk here a little bit higher into that enhanced risk area across the western Great Plains down into the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle. And then also we got that hail risk corresponding with the marginal, slight, and enhanced risk zones, except a significant hatched 15 and 30% hail risk of 2-inch or larger hail in diameter is expected or likely as we head into portions here of southwestern Kansas, the Oklahoma and Texas Panhandle, maybe far eastern portions of New Mexico as we head into Friday evening as well. So why is this happening? Let's kind of look at the closer scope of this here, of why this severe weather is possible, if not likely, as we head into Friday. Now you see all these warm temperatures pushing up. You can clearly see where that warm front extends across portions of the northern Great Plains, getting into the upper Midwest here across southern Iowa. To the north of that, a lot of stable air with air parcels that cannot really rise to grow thunderstorms, but you can still have elevated storms to the north of that front. But the severe weather potential is across portions here, especially of south central Nebraska, getting down through Kansas, Oklahoma, and portions of Texas, and even into eastern portions there of New Mexico as well, with all these temperatures rising into the 70s, even 80s, maybe even some 90s in there as well. We got these winds streaming up here on the warm sector here, right south, along and south of this warm front, screaming up out of the south, and we got a lot of strong wind, low-level wind shear because of this, and that will produce a lot of boundary layer moisture rising all the way up here into the upper Midwest and into the northern Great Plains region, with dew points here on average around the middle and upper 60s here across this area. And then again, to the north of that warm front, into the upper Mississippi Valley here, into the upper Midwest and far northern plains, the dew points will be lower into the 40s and lower 50s here to the north of that warm front. We got to look at this here at the lapse rates. This is kind of the temperatures that cool aloft from the surface all the way up to the upper levels of the atmosphere. And the faster that the temperatures cool off as you go aloft here into the lower levels, the mid levels, and then the upper level latitudes here of the atmosphere, the higher and steeper the lapse rates will be. And these are some pretty steep lapse rates, especially as you get up here into portions of Nebraska, southeastern South Dakota, western Iowa, and still some pretty decent values into Kansas and the Panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, but not as steep as they are up in here in portions of Nebraska near that triple point where that low pressure system, that cold front and dry line, and here that warm front meet, but still some pretty decent values. I mean, you could still see some lapse rates from Kansas down into Oklahoma and Texas Panhandle of around 7 to almost locally 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer. But then as you get up here into portions of Nebraska and into portions of western Iowa, southeastern South Dakota, we could be approaching almost 9 degrees Celsius per kilometer, which is very steep for thunderstorm activity. And there's no surprise that due to that fact that they're going to be so steep, with the temperatures cooling very quickly as you go aloft, you're going to have some pretty decent instability values as well, with the most unstable cape here across these areas from central Iowa nosing its way down into the central and southern plains, kind of centered on Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas, and getting up into portions here of central and western Kansas, and to that 2,000 to 3,500 plus range. We could have some localized areas approaching 4,000 joules per kilogram, and that is a lot of energy. Now, there's one caveat to this, and the caveat is being here there's going to be a cap on the atmosphere, inhibiting thunderstorm development, kind of some lower topped convection or thunderstorm activity as you head into the late afternoon during the peak heating, and that will kind of prevent the storms from really growing tall with those updrafts. And that is also in the mix layer here. So there's a surface-based cap and a mix layer cap, especially along that warm front here to the north. They'll kind of inhibit that those storms from really growing. But into the evening hours, as this dry line and that cold front start to overtake that dry line, and really here you get the forcing and the lift, the very strong lift along that here, those boundaries, you're going to really start to see those here thunderstorms grow, those updrafts grow, and you can see some severe weather. Because remember, lift is lifting all those air parcels up into the atmosphere, and that will help grow these storms, especially as you get the shear involved. Remember, we got the winds straight out of the south here on Friday. You go a few thousand feet up, they'll be coming out of the southwest, and then you've got a very potent mid and upper level jet coming in here, and this is really going to kind of kick off some shear across the area, kind of have that turning of the winds with tight and veering along that warm front. So especially got to watch that dry line and that warm front here for some tornadoes as we head into our Friday. And that could be an overnight tornado threat. So you do want to have multiple ways to get warnings, whether at the weather radio, your TV, smartphone, tablet, anything you can do here to get multiple warnings overnight while you're sleeping will be key. And you can see the reason why I'm concerned is because right along that dry line and even up toward that warm frontal area in the triple point where the low pressure system, the warm front and the cold front meet, that's where you got the supercell potential, some pretty decent values across central Nebraska, getting down to west central Kansas and down into the Texas Panhandle. And still, the significant tornado parameter, it is there. There is a potential for maybe a stronger tornado if you can have more discrete supercell activity as we head towards, the Friday evening, Saturday into early Saturday morning in the overnight time period. So let's look at this, the composite reflectivity. We got the thunderstorm activity up in the upper Midwest here. That is elevated in nature just north of the warm front here, maybe posing some smaller hail, some gusty winds, and some very torrential rainfall across those areas. Here, we'll talk about that later in this video, up into the upper Midwest and Mississippi Valley region. But looking out here into the central portions of the plains, not much going on here in the afternoon, late afternoon, still some building cumulus fields here with some clouds starting to get lower topped and starting to kind of grow a little bit in intensity. And then still as we head into the dinner time hour, nothing. But then we got the storms really erupting as we head just after dinner time here on Friday evening in a couple of zones here from southwestern portions and central and western portions of Nebraska, getting down to far northwestern and western Kansas, then kind of a broken line getting down into portions here of the Texas Panhandle. These will kind of weaken a little bit as they kind of outrun the low-level jet, but then a new line of storms, a very impressive squall line will develop from South Dakota through central and western Nebraska, getting down to western Kansas, tailing its way down here towards the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles as we head into the overnight hours on Friday into the evening, and that will be the main kicker here with all that strong low and mid-level shear with that strong trough coming in here with all that shear rounding the base of that trough. And you can see some tornado potential, damaging straight line winds that could be over 70 miles an hour and maybe even some large hail in excess of quarter or $half size as we head into Friday as well. Maybe even hail that could be in excess of 2 inches in diameter with some of the more discrete storms down here near the Texas Panhandle, the Oklahoma Panhandle, and down into southwestern portions of Kansas as well. Before they start to outrun, again, the better instability and the better parameters as they push to the east here on our Saturday. That leads us to our day 3 categorical outlook from the Storm Prediction Center here. The Storm Prediction Center does put a slight risk zone from much of north central Minnesota down through the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, including much of central Iowa into portions here of the Des Moines area, Ames, Iowa, getting up toward Fort Dodge, getting down here into portions of northwest and western portions there of Missouri around the Kansas City area, and then nosing its way down toward Topeka, Kansas, Wichita, the Oklahoma City proper area, Tulsa, and back towards the El Reno area as well, with a general marginal risk extending all the way down to the Mexican border into central Texas, just west of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, kind of around the Wichita Falls area, Fort Sill, and then getting up here to central Kansas as well. So why are we seeing this as we head into Saturday? A lot of warm temperatures again with that surging warm front to the north. You got a lot of 70s, even some lower 80s here. This model may be a little underdone. I see maybe some widespread lower 80s, maybe some middle 80s down into the Ozarks here ahead of the main cold front. And here we got winds south of the warm front. Like I said, the warm front will be well up toward Lake Superior on Saturday afternoon. So a lot of very strong low-level shear with all those strong winds out of the south. We could have gusts across portions of Iowa into Missouri, into eastern Kansas, eastern Nebraska ahead of this main trough and this main cold front. Non-thunderstorm winds could be gusting up to 50 plus miles per hour, so likely some wind advisories being needed across these areas here to account for that. And then we got those dew points with all those very strong winds kind of mixing out those dew points here from the mid 60s, kind of down into the middle and upper 50s, maybe some lower 60 dew points as you get over toward the Ohio Valley and in the Illinois Valley area as we head to Saturday afternoon, well ahead of the cold front. You can clearly see where that dry line, that cold front will be, and that'll continue to slide slowly to the east as we head into Saturday night. Now, the lapse rates along and ahead of the cold front still pretty robust. I mean, 6.5 to 7.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer up in the atmosphere. Remember, the cooling as you go aloft into the mid-levels, into the upper levels of the atmosphere, that'll be there, especially with northward extent into Minnesota, portions of southeastern Minnesota, western and northwestern Wisconsin, kind of getting down to central Iowa along and ahead of that cold front. Now, because of that, the lapse rates not being as robust as they are going to be on Friday, we're going to see a little less in the way here of instability, and also with some ongoing thunderstorms during the morning hours, a little uncertainty on the instability, but it will still be there relatively from about 800 joules per kilogram to maybe up to locally here 2,000 joules per kilogram if enough daytime heating can commence across portions of the Mississippi Valley down into the Ozarks and lower Missouri Valley as we head to Saturday afternoon. Another cap is present here along and ahead of that cold front, but that cold front, as it surges to the east, plenty of cold air with it, plenty of dynamics and shear that'll overcome that cap and erode it with time as we head through late Saturday afternoon. Also cap up in the mixed layer as well, especially across here southern Wisconsin, northwest Illinois, western Illinois, and getting down into the Ozarks region as Saturday afternoon. Like I said, as that cold front switches from west to east here, it kind of swings in from the west and moving to the east, a lot of those shear values will start to kick in. And along that front here, we could have shear values in the middle levels of the atmosphere around, 50 to 60 plus knots, maybe even locally 70 knots across these areas. So that'll be a lot of wind shear to work with. And then here you'll have supercell composite values all the way up into portions of the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, getting down through central Iowa. Higher values as you get down toward Kansas with a little bit more of that wind shear around the base of that trough, and then kind of a little more of the instability as well as you get down to those areas, more daytime heating. And then the significant tornado parameter, pretty concerning down into portions of Kansas, northwestern portions there of Missouri, central and western Iowa, and to far southeastern Nebraska. We'll have to watch that, but still some tornado probability potential with the parameters getting all the way up toward the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, La Crosse, Wisconsin, getting down toward the Fort Dodge area, Des Moines, Iowa, as we head towards the evening hours on Saturday. Now here Saturday, some ongoing storms may be possible across here much of Iowa into the morning hours. Those will fade away here as they move into that cap, and that cap really here starts to hold strong and during the daytime hours and really starts to make those storms fall apart here and dissipate across Iowa. And then in the afternoon, that cap really takes over here with a lot of warm, moist air on the surface and aloft, and that cap will really hold strong. Still some cumulus clouds here across these areas, but lower tops, not seeing any really upward growth with those until that cold front comes swinging in and we start to have storm development here late in the afternoon, early in the evening on Saturday. And then a squall line will start to develop here as we head toward late afternoon Saturday, well ahead of that cold front with kind of an outflow boundary from Friday storms, and that'll continue to push to the east. That line will weaken as it heads towards the Mississippi River in Iowa, Wisconsin, and down towards Missouri here toward the Quad Cities region and Davenport, Iowa, getting up towards, Dubuque, Iowa, La Crosse, Wisconsin with that stronger cap. But as that cold front comes through into western Iowa, into portions of southeastern Nebraska, we're going to start to see that secondary squall line start to develop, and that'll extend all the way down into the central and southern plains, all the way up into the upper Mississippi Valley. And along and ahead of this line could have some supercell thunderstorms potentially ahead of this line, especially as you get down here into Missouri and Kansas. Got to watch a couple of these storms ahead of this line. Could be putting down some tornadoes, some very large hail, potentially up to 2 inches in diameter, and then 70 plus mile per hour wind gusts with these storms and along this line here as it pushes from west to east. This line will continue to move slowly to the east, so it'll start to slow as we head towards Sunday morning as the cold front does start to slow, as the trough starts to broaden out here and kind of go parallel with the cold front, and we'll still see training thunderstorms across the mid-Mississippi Valley down in the lower Missouri Valley areas as we head into that time frame. Now let's backtrack here. This is this evening. We got a clustering of storms, elevated thunderstorms here along and ahead of that warm front as it's surging to the north, and seeing a clustering of storms in Iowa, eastern Nebraska, kind of nosing its way along that warm front into north central and central Illinois. And these storms will train over the same areas across southern Wisconsin, north central Illinois, into east central Iowa. And these will put down a lot of rain, some torrential rainfall, maybe some small hail, maybe even some medium-sized hail. We could be getting up to nickel-sized hail with the strongest cells, maybe up to briefly 50 to 60 miles per hour with any of the cells here that can kind of tap into that lower level shear as we head into Friday evening. And that is why the Weather Prediction Center has gone ahead and put a marginal risk of flash flooding out here for today across south central portions there of Iowa getting into far northern Missouri, far eastern Nebraska, and far western Illinois here to account for that clustering of storms. And then that'll shift east into northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and east central Iowa as we head into our Friday here, with the potential of some torrential rainfall with that here, kind of convective clustering, or complex of thunderstorms, if you will. Here, sorry, I cannot talk. The complex of thunderstorms across this region, across the mid-Mississippi Valley as we head towards Friday. And then again, here with that cold front down into the Missouri Valley, into the Central Plains, another marginal risk for flash flooding from the Weather Prediction Center on their Day 3 excessive rainfall outlook here as we head into Saturday. Now, looking at this here in the total rainfall amounts, with this complex of storms, 1 to 3 inches with locally 4 to 5 inches of rain could be expected here, especially from central Iowa, eastward into eastern Iowa, north central Illinois, and southern Wisconsin here. And looking at the broad picture here, we got that snowfall on the backside here. You got that lingering rain here back with that trough early on in the period here across southern and central and northern California, rather, getting into southern California around the Los Angeles region, even seeing some rainfall. And then you got all that rainfall across the Mississippi and Missouri valleys, getting over toward the Ohio Valley, the western Tennessee Valley, into the southern and central plains as we head through the rest of April. You can see where the active zones will be across the eastern 2/3 and the center of the country here as we head through the rest of the month with regards to precipitation. So do be sure to like my video here. I do appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to like my video here. Give me a nice thumbs up for here the video of breaking down all the severe weather and heavy rain hazards through the weekend. And also here, do remember here, you can also ask me any questions. I'll be here all day and night to answer those. And remember to subscribe to my channel here to catch the latest severe weather outlook, and also here to catch the latest here updates on my forecast here moving forward through the spring and summer months as well. So I wish you well, and thanks for watching my special coverage of the severe weather, and I hope everybody has a safe and great weekend this weekend.